All right, welcome back to Building Carico, a tired edition with myself and
where's your coffee? Where's your tea?
I need one. I know. I was even too tired to make the tea. And my co-founder CTO Shlomo Rozov. We sit down once a week and talk about the week, wins, losses, successes, failures, all that kind of stuff. All stuff Carico. So I just got back from New York, where I spent the last 2 days at a event called Health Impact. It was being hosted by Microsoft at Microsoft's Times Square offices. Pretty cool location. And Microsoft for Startups featured a room, like a couple startups. There's maybe 6 or 8 startups that they featured amongst all these other people that were there. Pretty close-knit event. A lot of executives from big health systems and different people. And so I did a panel today together with Sally Frank, who's I call her the startups queen. She's the head of Microsoft for Startups. It was meant to be a panel of 4. 2 people couldn't make it. One guy actually got stuck in Israel. Another guy, I don't know what happened. And so it ended up just being myself, one other startup, and Sally. What's cool about Carico being there is that, so the way that Microsoft for Startups works is you can apply, which, by the way, if there are any startups listening to this, it's a really great program. You can get up to $250,000 in Azure credits and a whole bunch of other perks. Like, they do a pretty good job with curating pretty good perks for startups. And then, so you could just be part of the program, but then there's like select invite only kind of status that for startups that could become part of something called the Pegasus program. The Pegasus program is like these hand-selected startups that they usually have to hit certain revenues, and they've raised a bunch of money, and there's like a lot of metrics they have to hit. And so the startups that were featured by Microsoft for Startups at this event were all Pegasus startups, except Carico. So nice. Carico was the chosen child, the one I said we're not non-Pegasus, we're pre-Pegasus.
Mm-hmm. So nice. So what's the what is it? What's the criteria to be Pegasus?
I don't know exactly. It's I don't even think it's 100% clear. It's like a vibe kind of thing, but there are some criteria around revenues and things and raising and I don't know. Yeah.
So basically, Microsoft creates this program, gives you Azure credits. What's the end game here?
Their end game is to have you on Microsoft. That's their end.
Have you on Azure.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. To build your
because the way it worked for us too, I was aware because we were using their credits. You have to go from one stage to another. You start with like $5,000 credits.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
2,500 to 500 to 20.
And then to get to the next stage, you have to, within a certain period, you have to spend some of those credits.
Right. And
do other like KYC stuff, right? Like, I don't know, documents and all that stuff. Proof of whatever. And then you do the next one to give you 5,000, and then you jump. Then you have to spend that 5,000. How do you spend it? How do you spend? Like, I had an idea. You can just spin up AI and just crunch a lot of numbers. It's very easy to burn through money. But generally, their idea is, okay, you're gonna move all your infrastructure onto Azure, and then you're gonna kind of be like locked in.
Right.
That's the goal of a lot of hyperscaler cloud systems.
By the way, Pegasus invites have to be building with Microsoft's cloud.
They have to be building what exclusively?
Building with Microsoft technology and have a customer-facing product on Microsoft Cloud.
Okay, but like every product, like there's nuance there, because every product is made up of so many parts.
There's nuance there.
Like we have this nuance is part of Microsoft. Yeah. Nice. You're on your game in spite of your tiredness. But like we're using like Azure front door, their CDN, using a lot of the stuff, not fully Microsoft. So I'm curious if that counts or not, but interesting.
So yeah, it was cool.
So the whole event was about
no, there was
startup?
Panels. It was no. The startup was its own thing. It was a very close knit, small, pretty small kind of healthcare conference, but very small.
About healthcare. Microsoft about healthcare. Okay.
No, Microsoft. It's another organization called Health Impact. There was a conference. The conference was being hosted by Microsoft.
I see.
And then Microsoft sponsored their startups as a part of the program.
I see. So they kind of they say, okay, we're going to sponsor, but here we can also promote our startups.
Right.
I see. Okay. Yeah. That's their upside from it.
Yeah. And so I did a panel today, and it was really cool actually, because like not to like toot my own horn here, but it's kind of cool to like watch your own like progress sometimes. And a couple months ago, maybe a year ago at this point, I don't know if you remember, I did like a 2-day speaking training
Right.
So I did a program, and it helped me so much.
It was a local guy here that referred to you, right?
Yeah. Basically, we had a business event here, and the keynote is a guy, and his name is Jeff. No, what's his name?
There's a lot of Jeffs here, but I don't think
Right.
it's Jeff.
Anyway, great guy. He has is it Jeff Cohen? No, it's
Something Cohen, I think, right?
Cohen. I don't know. He's in my phone, but he basically has a dental supplies company called Benco Dental, and he grew it to $1 billion in revenue. And so he was the keynote speaker, and he got up there and he crushed. I mean, he gave this like such a cohesive, clear, engaging talk. And I was the one that kind of helped arrange the event. So I was the one that met with him and brought him in. So I was like talking to him after. I was like, dude, you gotta teach me how to speak. And a couple months later, he was like, hey, here's this program I went to, and the only way to go, you don't pay, it's free. And they host you, like they give you lunch and everything, whatever. But you have to be referred by someone that went in the past, and I can nominate. You have to be nominated, whatever. I can nominate you if you'd like to. But I was like, let's do it. So I went to this thing for 2 days, and it really, really was like transformational. And it's cool because I did a speech like maybe 4 years ago at a tiny little rural health conference in Virginia, and I gave a talk on CCM, and I filmed it, and I have it on my YouTube channel.
And now you look back,
and it's great to look back at that because I'm just pacing around, and my words are so boring, and like the tone is so boring, and I would fall asleep within like 10 seconds listening to me then. And I don't know how I am now, but I know how I feel about it. The other thing is like the adrenaline that kicks in when you start speaking, it like blinds you. Right. And like all of a sudden next time it's over, you just kind of like click in, and you're like nervous before if you're going to remember the things to talk about or not. And so there's a couple different components to it. There's like being able to be present when you're speaking took me a lot to learn. And then also the actual like structure to speaking well and like trying to convey something. So yeah, it was just like cool because I realized like I was like fully present. Like I felt not a hint of like, heart rate or going up or anything, like very much there. I was like literally talking to people in the crowd, like doing like crowd engagement, stuff like that. And just felt very comfortable and natural and like whatever. So yeah, it's cool.
Nice. So who are you nominating? You don't get that? No. Well, we all know public speaking is not my strong suit.
Hey.
I mean, it'll make me probably a little bit better, but
no, it was very helpful. If anyone's listening to this and wants to reach out to me, I'd be more than happy to share like the highlight tidbits and stuff. But the core idea that was taught, and this isn't about speaking, so I don't want to go into too much, but like the core idea was that every single thing that you do on stage, from your hand motions to the words that you're using, to the inflections in your voice, to the pitch in your voice, to the speed, to words that you repeat, to the steps that you do on stage. Every single element of your presentation is in the purpose of communicating your central point. And even that is a whole chachman, just like a whole thing on how to like come up with what your actual point is and how to structure it. But like these really interesting ideas of like the psychology of stage. I'll give you one example. That apparently audiences think of the passage of time from right to left. And so, I would always just pace around on stage.
I noticed that. That's interesting.
Yeah. And then what they were basically saying is that like, if you're, let's say, saying, so you start in the center of stage, and let's say you're saying a story that started 2 years ago, you would move here. And then as you progress through the story, you like, and then here, and then here. Like just like one idea, or like you could stack things. If you're saying like care coordinate, let's say like a sentence like, care coordinators every single day, they need to do so you could say care coordinators every day, they document and they time and track and they have to do all this administrative work. Or you could say every single day care coordinators have to document. Not only do they document, but they have to document and this. And they have to do this and this and this. Not just that, but they do this and this and this and this. And then there's like, you could put things down on the stage. Like you could be like, this idea is here. And then you could come up to different ideas here. And then you like come back to the idea that you placed on the stage or whatever, like a lot of cool stuff like that,
Especially in the age of video and, high stimulation, like just looking at a person walking on stage, it's not animating in a cohesive way together with what they're saying is probably you lose people's attention.
Yeah.
People have shorter attention spans today because of video. I mean, they've done studies on kids that watch videos and stuff like that. Their attention span is like terrible. So I think probably it's even more important today.
And you watch it, you just look at the crowd and you see the people that are just, and then you see the things that you say that like perk them up, and then you've got some.
I once took public speaking lessons when I was in Smicha, and the guy then there said that you got to catch the crowd's attention. You start with a joke or a story, and then from there you don't lose them. You keep the momentum going. You can't. The minute you lose them, you lost them.
Yeah.
So it's like you start off and you keep their attention. Yeah. And he was that was it.
That checks out.
But I think practice is probably, it's good to know the practices and techniques, but then practice is what makes you perfect, right?
Right. And that's why it's fun to get out and do it, because like, I found it to be enjoyable. Like I was enjoying myself up there.
Nice.
It was cool. So there was that. There was like a dinner last night that was very like an exclusive dinner at like some super high end spot that was really nice. So yeah, definitely a couple of good highlights. It was really nice. But on the way to New York, Jack Altman, who's Sam Altman's brother, has this, I think, relatively new podcast. It's called Uncapped.
Yeah. The way I read the whole thing was like, he was like, brother, do me a favor. Come on, give me a little bit. And he's like, okay, I'll open a podcast and I'll join you, and then it's going to be a hit and everybody's going to know who you are.
No, Jack's his own thing, apparently. Jack's doing his own thing. That's
why you never heard of him until now, right?
Well, he's not Sam. I mean, he's definitely not Sam. But no, I've seen him around. I've been following him on X for like probably a year.
And I've seen him too.
Yeah. But he basically started a company, and then he started a VC, I think, recently, and now he's doing a podcast as whatever. But yeah, Sam was making fun of me. He's like, you're my literal podcast bro now. Because Sam Altman basically just came on his podcast. But I also listened to the one with Sean McGuire, which you'd probably appreciate.
On Jack Altman?
Yeah, so he went on, and I listened to the Sean McGuire one, and I listened to the Sam one, and I listened to the Mark Andreessen one, which was what drew me to the podcast, because Mark went on and it apparently was
from Jack podcast. Jack Altman.
It was like a dense, good podcast. Yeah, so I listened to all three of them between there and back, and there was just a couple things that Sam Altman talked about that were really interesting that kind of like stood out to me. And he mentioned this just like off the cuff, but it was like crazy concept to me, where he said, he was basically saying that, so Jack, his brother, was asking him like, oh, you could kind of do anything, you could do anything, like you could build a rocket company or a social company or like whatever, you could like do
rocket company. I don't think so.
Not about, more like resources, like you could do anything. How do you choose what to do? That was like the vein of the question. Right. And the comment that I found like so astounding was Sam was like, yeah, maybe in the future, once we get more resources, we could do X. And I was like, Sam Altman, who's running OpenAI, who has access to,
just tells you what his vision is.
Right, but it also told me that you're always going to feel that, because I'll tell you why it was so jarring to me, because I feel that right now. I'm like, yeah, but if we had this, then if once we get to here, we're gonna be able to build this, and it's this feeling of like impatience towards what we're able to build once we get to stage C and D and E. You know what I mean? As a startup, it's like, yeah, but once we have 100,000 patients a month, we're gonna be able to do this, and once we have 500,000 patients a month, this and whatever. And I was like, oh my god, this guy feels the same.
Right.
Same
game, it's just a different stage.
Yeah, it was like mind blowing to me.
Rockets? They were talking about rockets.
Yeah. I don't know.
Does he have anything to do with
Elon?
rockets?
I don't know what it was, but he was saying that, I don't know. But he said he thinks that he was like, socials company and this company and that company. He's very interested in robotics also. Whatever. But yeah, I was like, wow, it just comes back to show you that you're never going to get there. The same way, like in life, like you never feel successful, quote unquote. Like, it sounds like it's the same thing with a startup, where like you never feel like, oh, okay, now I'm doing everything I could do.
And supposedly a lot of people, when they reach a certain point where they thought it was success, they get depressed, because then it's like, they feel emptiness. Because like until now, you're always being pulled. There's purpose. You're needed for something. There's a sense of purpose. And then suddenly you came and you're like, well, now what? And then there's like a massive, some people get depressed after. I also heard a lot of people, after the day they sell their company, first of all, the selling their company is a very emotional experience, like a roller coaster. And then after they sell it, a lot of them are very depressed.
Yeah.
Like even if you think like, okay, I'm going to sell it for a lot of money, it's like, you put so much energy into it, and the momentum and the purpose, and it's like, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I also think that there's a concept called escape velocity. I think it comes from like the concepts of
Escape velocity.
yeah, it comes from like, it's an analogy from like space, from like when basically when something breaks out of space, it's fighting through, especially once it goes through like the ozone layer in certain areas, it's very, very thick. That's why it reaches like tens of thousands of degrees, because the friction, it's so hot and so thick. So it's really fighting gravity, and also fighting the friction in the air. And then those rockets, once they break out, then they leave. There's no gravity pulling them. They only have free momentum. So like it's like almost zero energy, and they keep on going. And in business building, there's also an analogy to that. Escape velocity is basically when you've reached a point that it's it. You're just flying, and you're not looking at your sides. You're not looking at your back. I think it's when a company is. I didn't read like the details of what it means, but my understanding is when you reach a point where you're like way ahead of your competitors, you're firing on all cylinders. You're not worried about tomorrow. Like obviously, you don't want to be complacent. You always have to be diligent.
Well,
and always.
Facebook is not worried about tomorrow. They're worried about 10 years from now, but they're not.
Facebook has the worries because they have they're trying to innovate in big areas like AI, and they just hit a massive roadblock.
What was that roadblock? Because they were talking about that also. What happened exactly?
They worked so much and they put so much money into Llama 4.
Yeah.
I don't know, tens or maybe $100 billion, and the results weren't as good.
Really?
Yeah, it was like meh.
It was meta.
It was.
Sorry, I'm very tired.
It was pretty meh, and like now, like they're scrambling for a backup plan.
So Sam was talking about it. I didn't know what he was referring to, but he was saying that Meta considers OpenAI to be their biggest competitor, and he said it's interesting because in the world, people would think that Google should think that, like, Google's the one that should be scared of OpenAI, but he said that people inside of Facebook or Meta think that people are liking their experiences on a social level with ChatGPT more often than their actual like Facebook friends, stuff like that. So it's a different thing that they're kind of concerned about. But he was basically saying, this was another interesting point that we discussed already, but he was saying that Meta apparently has been offering certain like top level people at OpenAI $100 million sign-on bonuses to come work for them.
Wow.
And he like muttered under his breath, and more than that as a yearly as a salary on top of that. And he's like, no one's taken it. And the thing that he said that was so interesting is the fact that the fact that what they had to offer was $100 million told the people that all we have to offer you is money. Not vision, not culture, not ingenuity, not innovation. We're just that's what we have. This is what we have to offer you, because you're gonna offer. If you're trying to approach somebody, you're gonna show them, here's the best thing that I have to give you. And if that best thing to give you is $100 million, then like.
I hear that, but let's put in context. Sam Altman is a massive marketer, and he knows how to mince his words in a way that like he's very convincing. But in reality, I mean, for Meta, $100 million is nothing. If they say, okay, hey, we need to get AI, we need to get going fast, and we don't have time to poach and to convince, let's just boom, throw checks. I think that's true. I think that makes sense. I don't think what Sam is saying is true. Meta has some of the best engineers, and not just in AI, in many areas in the world, and
data galore, and
they're a very coveted company for engineers to join. And I would say that OpenAI has their own problems. Look how many people left them. Anthropic actually is very attractive for a lot of the AI talent goes to Anthropic, and they stay there. Like they have a high retention rate because of their vibe and their mission. I mean, I think from a business perspective, they're pretty bad, but I mean, bad relative to the scale that we're talking about. The place that they are. Like I think they should be much more product focused. With actually Claude Code is getting a lot of momentum, so that's smart on their end. That's a pretty good move. But I'm just saying that OpenAI had a lot of people leaving their company, many key people, like all the executives left. The head of product, Mira Murati, obviously, what's his name, the chief scientist, leaving.
Right.
So I mean, he can't say that he had a culture,
Fair enough.
but I did hear that Meta also has a brutal culture. So yeah, I mean, but the point is true. Like regardless, I mean, the concept is true, regardless of the accuracy of it.
Yeah. Kind of adjacent to, but I also was thinking about it on the ride, like, and over the last couple of days, you know, when things get really tough in a startup, and it's not just problems, like it's not like fires that come up that have to put out. It's like when things like compound and there's like a lot of different things that happen, and a lot of it is a mental game. It's not like a practical game. It's like a lot of it is a mental game. And something that we've talked about often, which is like always fun thought to come back to, that you said you do this a lot when you're like in the crap of like an annoying thing to get through, is that if it's difficult, you know, if it were easy, everyone would do it. And this is one of the fact that we're working through this, and not just working through it, but working through it with the, you know, genius that we have as a team, and for US CTO, is obviously a massive edge. But there's another element to it that also What
were you saying? What do you do when it's getting tough?
No, I was saying in addition to what you've talked about, which is the fact that it's tough. Okay, good. That's why not everyone does it, because it's tough.
Oh, right.
But there's something on the mental level that's like, that I'm trying to like appreciate, even though I don't think I can fully yet. Like I could by reference to previous experiences, but not fully. But it's like, it puts you through this like mental crucible. And Sean McGuire was the one that was talking about this. Like it puts you through like this mental crucible, that just creates a more hardened, like, person, and by extension company. Like when each person at the, you know, company, or at least the key people at the company, go through these kind of experiences, right. It's not just the fact that the product is hard, but the fact that you go through the mental like pain of the experience and get through it to the other side. Like it leaves a shell, you know,
in a good way.
In a good way.
It doesn't kill you.
Yeah.
It doesn't kill you. Makes you tough.
Yeah, it's like oversimplified. It's like, yeah, what doesn't, you know, kill you makes you strong kind of thing, but it's deeper than that. I'm still like kind of like thinking through it, but like, I don't know, there's something very powerful about it that you'll never get without the pain. Like you won't be that person that's able to accomplish stuff.
Right. And to be able to endure pain, you have to have had a bad childhood. Apparently, that's just generally what psychology has come to the conclusion of. People that are good runners, like endurance runners, and like do like triathlons, or people that do startups, usually they weren't like, I would say, if you look back in everybody's history, they didn't grow up in just amazing, loving, fun.
Well,
like everybody had their challenges in different ways, and like they're letting out like they had like a fire from when they were younger, that kind of a combination of needing to prove themselves, and a combination of like, you know, just enjoying the hurt in a way. There's something about enjoying the hurt, you know.
Is that what a masochist is?
Could be.
I think so.
No, masochist is someone that injures himself. Is that what it is?
Well, they enjoy pain, right?
This is different. This is like pain with a purpose.
Yeah.
Like you're not taking a knife and doing like that.
Right. But yeah, 100%. You know, I've talked about this, but I literally was saying this at that dinner last night. I don't know why it came up, but I was basically saying, because someone was talking about her kids. You have kids that are like crap kids because they're not disciplined at all. So they're literal just terrors as children, right? And what you'll hear often from like their parents or other people that are like, whatever, that should be disciplining these children and are not disciplining the children. They're just letting them run around. I'm not talking about parents that are being strategic about when to discipline, when not to discipline. I'm talking about when it's very obvious. You all know people that have kids that are just little shits, you know, and
the parents don't care. They're totally not.
They're totally checked out. And something that you'll hear very often from these people is like, it's okay when they grow up. They'll grow up.
Oh, they have reasoning. Because some people that I speak to, they're like, well.
No. Let the people that have reason, it's like, whatever, they'll grow up. And what I've noticed from watching a lot of different people is that it's very interesting because they do grow up and they stop being little shits, meaning they're not going to be 20 years old running around and breaking things. And they very often actually as adults become the nicest, calmest, most like, you know, relaxed people ever as adults. But so often I find, I'm not a psychologist and I haven't done a proper case study on this, but I've watched enough people to put this out there that I think it's true, they don't get anywhere in life because as a child, they were never pushed back at by life, which should be your parents and discipline and teachers and whatever.
Right.
So they were never pushed back at. So because of that, they don't know what that feeling feels like.
Yeah.
So when you become an adult, and guess what?
Yeah.
You're not living at your parents' house anymore. You can't, whatever, you have to put yourself out there. The second they get the tiniest little bit of pushback from life, they don't know what to do. So they're so terrified of that feeling that they can't, and they just coast and they live their whole life like not realizing the potential that they could have had.
I think the best parenting that I relate to is a training session that you're teaching your kids how to be ready for life, and always saying yes to them and always pleasing them is obviously not going to help them, because then they don't know how to survive without you when they're older.
Right.
So yeah, I think kids learning from disappointments is very important. Like allowing them to have disappointments that they can learn from is very crucial, because when they know how to cope with it, they know how to think back and say, I should have done that, I should have done that. That's how you learn. And when the brain is young, it's malleable. Like up to a certain age, brains can change, but after a certain point, it's much harder.
Right. Yeah. So it comes back to that same point of like, when you know what a hard wall feels like, and you know what it feels to break through that hard wall, then when you see a wall, you're not terrified. But the person that's never touched a wall before, they're like, oh, whoa, I don't know. I see a barrier there. I'm not doing that. I'm not going there, you know? So there's like this, whatever, but yeah, it's interesting. So how's texting coming along?
Texting's coming good. It's made a lot of progress. As I'm getting,
like it's working. I don't know.
Yeah, as I'm getting deeper, I'm noticing a lot of small nuance. I think what I decided is I'm gonna slice out into V2 and V3, 2 parts that I'm not tackling right now. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we're gonna ship it to clients, but at least in terms of like code integration and us testing, it's gonna be 3 stages. I think the biggest one I've already done, the actual texting back and forth, and 10 DLC that we did before that, which was also a big mountain. So what we're going to push off, I think, is like the unread and notifications part of it, which is probably pretty critical, but at least from a code perspective, I want to kind of deliver that. And then we're going to have that screen that we talked about where you can see like all your recent messages and like just a very like a WhatsApp style, WhatsApp desktop style, which I think is a very good experience.
Yeah.
So yeah, but the texting works. There's so much complexity there, but it's like, because of 10 DLC and the consents, and also because there's multiple practices, each user has multiple practices, and there's multiple there's many patients, and each patient could have multiple numbers. They have all number, which number did they consent on, which number did they not consent on. So there's a lot of stuff.
It's by number.
Yeah, on the patient side, it needs to be by number. So yes, we have that flow working though. Right now we have the flow working that you're on a call, you click that the patient consented, boom, it unlocks messaging. You can message a patient, they can message you back. Right away when you unlock it, it sends them,
and
it sends them a system message.
We're like, we have it in the audit trail, but like there's kind of like a digital signature that the user essentially is taking responsibility by clicking that thing.
Yeah, this is patient consent for 10 DLC registration. This is not HIPAA.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a HIPAA waiver. It's 2 different things.
Mm-hmm.
That's gonna be a separate feature that we're gonna do.
How hard is it to go once we have this working to like some of the automated stuff, like 10 minutes before a call, setting automatic messages and campaigns and stuff like that?
When you say it's so simple, it is so simple, but...
No, I'm not saying it's so simple.
No, I'm saying, assuming it's so simple, but the question is, where do you know that it's 10 minutes before a call? You need a scheduler?
Right.
We have a scheduler, we don't have a scheduler.
Right.
So much to unlock there. It's like, I think one of the biggest ones are going to be like AI assisting messaging. Like you're on a call, you get in a message, you can the AI can give you a few options. I'm on a call right now, I'll call you back in 7 minutes or 10 minutes. Or the AI is smart enough, it knows the patient's history, it knows what your policy is, it knows how you like to work, and it's going to answer accordingly. Prepare you a message that you kind of approve. So I think there's so much to unlock there. And then
tons. And
I think all that is like, it all goes to agentic. It all leads to agentic, because jumping from non-agentic to agentic, you can make a very nice demo, but in real life, I think it's very, very hard. But if you're giving it to real users, and real users are actually clicking the buttons, making the transactions. You're just giving them a lot of ideas and a lot of tools, and then they give you feedback and you fine tune it until they're always clicking whatever you give them. Right. Then it's like, why don't we just make it agentic at this point? So
right.
I think all roads lead to agentic in that sense.
In the right, in the right way.
Until we have everything so down pat that it's just everything we're recommending to users, they're just accepting it. The notes, they're just copying. They're not editing. The tasks, they're completing. They're not deleting. They're not editing. The responses, they're using our responses. The call guide, obviously, conversation is very different. You're never going to be able to say the words. You're never going to be able to figure out a call guide because you also want the person to own the conversation and to talk but using their own words. But generally, the structure, the content. So I think calling agentically, I think that's good. We're far away from that still. Like even as an industry, even as technology, forget about us as a company. But I think that would be like probably the last step. But maybe like you said last week, like more quick, like, hey, intake, like, how can I help you? I have resources. I'm resourceful as an AI. I can do a few things. I can message the person. I can put them a reminder to call you back later. So that's not for conversation purposes, but for conversation, I think we're far, far away for many reasons.
Funny, so my panel today was on agentic AI, and I gave my take, which I think anyone that listens to the podcast is very familiar, that like in the space of CCM or chronic care management or whatever, chronic condition management, it's mostly BS. I think we found a lot of the correct places to put agentic AI. So, and I think that, we'll accelerate in those directions where it's proper. But my core belief is between the one-way conversations and the two-way conversation, basically differences. So I walk out and this old doctor sitting on a bench. He's like, I want to challenge you on your, so I said, just make it a good challenge. As long as you make it a good challenge. He's like, all right. He's like, I have a long-term care, some sort of thing. He's like, we partner with a company. We'll even plug them if I could find who it is. But he's like, we partnered with a company and they do agentic AI. Here, I found it. It's called Mila, MEELA.ai. And he's like, they do agentic AI, and we did a case study, and it was for loneliness, and it worked. And I was like, wait a second. So it's basically an AI companion for older folks. Their tagline is an AI companion for the golden years. Mila is a personalized AI voice companion designed to engage with older adults over scheduled phone calls. Now, this is what it sounds like.
I.e.
Hi there. I'm Mila, your personalized AI buddy. I'm here to listen, learn, and support you every step of the way. Whenever you're ready to start chatting, I'm just a call away.
Okay, so still sounds robotic, but the purpose is for loneliness. And for that very specific use case, I told him I actually agree. That actually makes sense. Meaning, what's my whole theory about two-way conversation is if I'm trying for chronic kidney disease, I need to change your behavior. And to do that, my whole thing is like change health outcome, change behavior, you need a relationship. That's where you need a human being.
Outreach.
This is the very thing is that I have nothing to talk to, and it's more about me, meaning there's no behavior that needs to be changed. You just need to give them something to talk to. So you give them something to talk to. I don't understand why you can't just call the ChatGPT number. Like, I don't understand what the company is.
I was going to say, it sounds like white label ChatGPT.
Yeah, like, I don't know why you can't just do that. 1-800.
It is HIPAA compliant and SOC 2 compliant.
So that's basically where the differences are, maybe. But from an actual technology perspective, you could just, but I'm allowed to call ChatGPT and talk to ChatGPT about whatever I want.
Right, exactly.
So if the issue is companion, then I own my own data.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
I wonder if it remembers the people and the conversation history and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, all right. That's a good point. So maybe it does. Probably does. That's a good point. But I was like, for that, that's probably a good use case for agentic AI because it's more about you than it is about whatever. There's no behavior change being had. You just need someone to chat with, so it's fun to chat with.
And more so that they're looking for something.
The patient
is looking for something. You don't have to convince them. You're not reaching them and saying, hey, let me try to train you. Let me try to convince you about something. So.
Right. But when I told the doctor, no, I'm talking about, CKD, he's like, oh yeah, for sure. Absolutely not. Agentic AI. This same guy, he's like, oh yeah, no, for that stuff, absolutely not. It's all garbage. He's like, yeah, Hippocratic AI, all that stuff. It's all garbage.
Interesting.
Yeah. So.
But yeah, going back to text, it's really fun. I think the text. Yeah. Also, like I think we're gonna make it really good. Like the experience is gonna be like what Shlomo's designs, and we're going back and forth on stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be because most people when they release text, like platforms that have messaging or text. I was saying this today. I think usually most of the time it's pretty clunky, and it's like we're so spoiled because of the WhatsApps, and maybe you can say the Facebooks. I'm not really a Facebook user, so I don't know the Google chats or whatever. Like the high quality stuff that really invest, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of hours in UX research and tweaking. We're so spoiled by it that when we see some clunky messaging thing, it's like it doesn't feel right. So I think most implementations, most software products that have messaging, it's always feels a little clunky. And I think I'm hoping that we can make ours like so smooth and be like, yeah, people are going to use it and they'll be like, oh my God, I feel like I have it over here. Oh, I found it. All right. Like,
You have a lot of them.
the whole, this is true. Oh, whoa. Oh my God. What? No, I feel like we can really like make it so amazing that people are going to be like, oh my God, I never had such a great chatting experience. Just everything being in the right place, making sense.
Right.
The features,
the Carco,
clarity. Right, and then the
personalization.
Right, and then the utility, like the Kiriko stuff, the AI stuff, that'll be like another little cherry on the top, I think. But yeah. So it's fun. Yeah, it's going to look great. It's going to feel great. So
exciting. And
unlike these horizontal platforms like Dialpad and Ring Central, where they're catering for everybody and they can't limit their scope, which technically they could, by the way. They could say we have different flows, exactly. They could do that. But generally, I don't know why they don't do that. Maybe there's a good explanation, or maybe there isn't. But we're able to say, hey, we know the use case. We're going to make a very custom experience, just like the 10DLC.
Right.
When you registered a company, you're like, that was so simple. And like in your mind, you knew that it was a big thing because I was telling you that we're working on it for weeks and all that. And then I looked at Dialpad and the Ring Central experience, and there tons of pages and forms. You have to have like a doctor's degree or someone to hold your hand through the whole process. So I think everything from 10DLC until the phone is like so obvious, so intuitive and fun for the user.
For one specific use case. That really is the magic. Absolutely. And I'm so happy that we've stuck with and trying to be, as laser focused as possible on this thing. Like you remember early on, everyone was like, oh, why don't you just do this for everything, for sales, and for this and for that? We were like, no, we want to crush healthcare, not just healthcare, but care coordination. And, I think it's proving to be obvious at this point, but it's definitely proving to be the right move for sure. Yeah. I'm very tired. So cheers to this week. And here's to next week.
All right.